Bellissimo. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. That mantra, Gauranga, has a very beautiful meaning. The Gauranga mantra means that the Supreme Lord, it's like the golden sun, brings light into our hearts and into our minds. Sometimes we find in our life there's parts of our hearts and our minds that we don't like. Maybe we're holding on to anger or fear, jealousy, different negative things. This beautiful Gauranga mantra brings light into those dark places, brings light into the heart and into the mind.
How's the climate this week out there? Climate's good? Much better than being outside, isn't it? Killer. All right, so now we have 3 or 4 hours to explore some yoga wisdom, and then we'll have some more kirtan. So I understand there were 2 questions tonight. One of them, the person asked me already, and I said, there's no way that I can answer that, so we'll just leave that one aside. It was about, would Liverpool win the Premier League this year? Not sure. And there was one other. What was the other one?
My question
Yeah.
was, yes. So how can an animal have, strange question, have good enough karma to go into a human body in its next life?
Okay.
You know, because if you're an insect, you kind of want to make your way up there.
Right. Yeah. So the question is, because, was it last week or the week before? Last week. The question was about, well, when does a person enter into the body, at what stage? And this kind of led into, understanding the nature of the self and things like that. So this is a bit of a, and led us into a discussion on reincarnation and things like that. So that's kind of where this is coming from. So the question is related to, because we were talking last week about, wherever we see the symptoms of life, right? So, we think we're human and we have a soul, or, we're alive and we're part of the Supreme, we're part of God. But we were explaining the idea that wherever there is the symptoms of life, there is an Atma, or a spiritual self, present. That applies to everything and everywhere. A piece of grass. Let me see if people are understanding or listening. Is there a living being within a blade of grass? Who says no? Who's afraid to put their hand up? And you put your hand up. It's actually not that difficult to answer or to see, to perceive very clearly that grass is growing. Inert matter doesn't grow on its own. It's only when it's in the presence of life is there this internal growth through metabolism, etc. So anyway, so the question that we've come to this evening is, okay, so we understand that within those life forms of the various animals, example is mosquito. You use the example of a mosquito, but in the bodies of our dogs, our cats, our budgies, all kinds of animals that we see, cows, lambs, pigs, birds. There is an Atma, spark of the Supreme, same as you and I, not less. The living being, the spirit soul, in whatever form or species she may be currently residing, is equally part of God as you and I are. There is no such thing as an animal soul or a bird soul or a duck soul. There is just Atma, living being, spirit soul, equal part of the Supreme Soul. So how is it that the living being who is now in this form of some insect or even plant or different animal form, how do they accrue karma so that they can eventually come to the human form of life? Why would a person want to come to the human form of life? Why is that an advantage?
Because we've got minds to think.
We have minds that think. Dogs think.
Yeah,
Dogs have minds.
but we can actually ponder why we exist.
Ah,
I don't think it
yes, exactly. So the answer is we can actually ask the question of, who am I? Why do I exist? What should I be doing with my life? So this is, like, if you look at the living beings, the animal kingdom, and you look at us, human animals, the human person in a human body, you'll see that there are a lot of similarities in what we pursue and we'll use the example of a dog. Now, for those of you who have dogs, please do not be offended. This is nothing personally against your personal dog. What does a dog like to do other than mess up the grass when it's going for a walk? It likes to eat. Anyone here got a dog, or have you ever seen a dog? They really like to eat, and they really get into it. You ever seen a dog just, merging into the food, and there's just food flying everywhere when they've got their mouth in the bowl or wherever it is. So dogs love to eat. What about humans? Do we like to eat? Yeah. Oh yeah, we do. Not only are there restaurants on every second block, what's the most popular TV show? Anyone have any idea what the most popular TV shows are? Cooking. Cooking shows outrate anything. So we know that we also like to eat. We have that in common. Have you ever, like after the dog's eaten, just wants to curl up and just kind of lie there in the sun and have a good nap, right? Dogs like to sleep. We like to sleep. We try and sleep as long as we can, 8, 10, 12 hours a day if we can. There's a friend of mine, Sister Krishna, he describes sleep as being the poor man's nirvana. Nirvana, the idea is, forget all your troubles and all your problems and, just even forget your own existence for a while, because when I exist, it means I have trouble, I have problems, I have worries, I have responsibilities. But in sleep, all that isn't there. Unless, of course, you have all that stuff in your subtle body, the dreams, in the mind. So dogs like to eat, we like to eat. Dogs like to sleep, we love to sleep. Water beds, all kind of beds. You can pay thousands and tens of thousands of dollars for beds. Eating, sleeping. We also don't mind a little bit of sex. If you notice, dogs like sex. They'll even do it in the road. They like it that much, right? Now, I've known some humans who will do it in the road as well. In fact, I remember years ago, I went to an AC/DC. It wasn't a concert. They were actually playing in a pub in Brisbane. They weren't even well known yet. And coming home, when I went to the nightclub and then kind of coming back to my car, I had to step over two human beings doing it in the road just to get into my car, to open the door into my car. I had to get them to scrunch over slightly so I could step into my car. So some humans like to do it in the road as well. So dogs like sex, humans like sex, eating, sleeping, bit of sex, and a good argument every now and again. There's nothing like a good bark. Like Madhuri and I go for walks around a neighbourhood and on the beach to chant some japa meditation. We come back, through a certain block, and we know the dogs in certain houses that when we walk past, they will bark. Right? What are you doing here? Get out of this is my place. Right? And they kind of chase you up and down the length of their yard. So dogs like to have a good fight, good argument, good, bark. Well, what about humans? It's nothing like a good argument just to set your day right. So we like to fight and argue and defend and all of that kind of stuff. So there we actually have that there's no difference from this point of view in the living being in a species of life, such as a dog, cat, horse, whatever it might be, and those of us in the human form of life. We have all of these things in common. We might do it slightly sophisticated. We might eat with a knife and fork instead of just putting our snout into it, right? But basically it's the same experience. And as you're saying, there is a difference. What is it that's so special about the human existence, the human body that we take on? In fact, it is described in the yoga text as being precious. A most precious thing is this human life, because it is actually the takeoff point for transcending this wheel of samsara, wheel of repeated birth and death. Because birth and death is a wheel. It is not a straight line. It is a wheel of repeated birth and death. So the human form of life is when we can actually finish this merry-go-round, finish this experience of repeated birth, diseases, old age, death, cancer, broken hearts, broken feet, broken homes, all kind of broken things, anxiety, fear, depression, all the things that all of us actually go through. Positive thinking or no positive thinking, these things happen to us. So we are meant to transcend this wheel of samsara. And the human form of life is when we get that opportunity. And it begins. The demarcation point that makes it so that we are actually living a human life is not whether we wear clothes, or whether we eat food with a knife and fork, or whether we drive around in cars, or we have a university education. This is not what makes us humans. What makes us human is when we ask the question, who am I? Why am I here? And why am I suffering? To ask those questions is what makes us human. Otherwise we are just polished animals, two-legged animals, doing the same thing that any living being can do, actually even better. It's actually, you know, if the focus of our life is eating, sleeping, sex, indulgence, and having a good bark or a good fight or a good argument every now and again, then actually the lower species of life, animal life, is more suited. Because you can do it in the road and no one's going to arrest you. You can eat as much as you want. You can go from one dog to the next dog, and basically there's no hang-ups, right? In dog life, dogs don't have hang-ups. Dogs don't feel guilty. There is no guilt in dog life, dog experience, animal experience. Whereas we have guilt, don't we? We have hang-ups. And, you know, and that'd be a long topic, but basically the new age psychology, psychiatry is trying to tell us that, no, get rid of hang-ups, get rid of feelings of guilt. You shouldn't have it, you should expel that. And actually what that feeling is actually an inner voice that's actually trying to guide me to live to the fullest potential of the human form of life, to ask these questions, to find a solution, to seek wisdom, and then to act on that wisdom. That is actually a successful human life. Otherwise, we don't need a human life if all we're pursuing is eating, sleeping, sex, and a good argument, good fight, defending our property, defending the goods that we have, defending our castle. Human form of life is not necessary. We can do that in all the other forms as well. So, yes, it is actually very precious, this human form of life. Because if we take advantage of it, of the full potential of it, then yes, we can transcend this wheel of samsara. So let me get to answer the question directly. It is only in the human form of life, because of our intelligence and ability to discriminate right from wrong, that there is karma. It is only in the human form of life that there is karma, or the reactions to our actions, because we can discern, we can discriminate what should be done and what should not be done. Good from bad, good from evil. Whereas in the lower species of life, the other species of life, there is no karma for a lion when it eats a gazelle. That is because it does not have that ability to discriminate, to go, should I eat that gazelle? Or is that a sin? Is that a bad thing? Maybe the gazelle won't like it, so therefore maybe I shouldn't do it. No, you don't see lions sitting around having this discussion with each other. No, there is what we call instinct, simply to pounce to eat because that's part of its life. So the lion will not get any karma for doing that. Whereas we do. All of the decisions, we touched on this last week as well, I think, just on the idea of karma and the reaction to our actions. Every breath we take, every move we make, in the pursuance of our material sense experience or enjoyment, there is a resultant reaction. Every. Not just big things. Every breath you take, every step that you step, there is a reaction to our actions. And this is known as karmic reaction. And people refer to it as good karma or bad karma, right? Which we then must experience back to us in another body, another life after we leave this body behind. So for the living being who is, and it's described in the yoga text, the Vedic text, that there is 8,400,000 different types of bodies that the living being, the spirit soul, can inhabit. This is not the same classification as modern science has as far as species. This is a whole different kind of classification, but 8,400,000 different kind of bodies that the living being can inhabit, from a microbial, to a bacterium, all the way up to, a demigod. According to one's karma, one's consciousness, desires, attachments, all the things we talked about last week, which is determining, what kind of body we enter into. So for these 8,400,000 of bodies that we can have, as we said, it is only in the human body, human form of life, that there is responsibility, therefore karma. All of the other species, there is an automatic evolution, step by step by step, which takes place automatically. The living being within those other species does not have to make a conscious decision or engage in any particular activity to come to the human form of life. So it's not like, it's not like Darwin's theory of evolution that, that life evolved from atoms, from molecules, from matter, from chemicals. It's not actually completely correct to say an evolution of consciousness, because our consciousness is eternally the same, but it can become covered. This is, we used the example, was it last week or the week before? I might have been in another class actually. We are like a diamond which is deep in the earth and it's covered by layers of, rocks and dirt and things like that. So therefore the brilliance and the beauty of the diamond is not seen or experienced. So similarly, we, the eternal soul, the eternal Atma, we are Sat Chit Ananda. We are eternal, full of wisdom and blissful by nature. But in our sojourn through this material world, this pure consciousness, our pure consciousness, becomes covered by all of these things. Material desires, attachments, karmic reaction. These are like the dirt and the rocks, which is covering the diamond, me, the spirit soul, the diamond of me, the spirit soul. So the different species of life mean greater or less degrees of or thickness of that covering over the living being's original consciousness. Can you follow what I'm saying? So it's like the diamond might be there and maybe the diamond's covered just by a thin layer of dirt, and we can compare that to a human being. It's kind of manifesting more. But if you look at a bacterium, that kind of body is very dull, or a slug, a snail or a slug, right? The living being in there is equal, but the consciousness is more deeply, more thickly covered. So this evolutionary step, lifetime after lifetime, gradually the living being is moving upwards, meaning less thick a covering, material covering, and gradually, eventually, the living being gets the opportunity, as we have now in this life of a human form of life. Then, this is our opportunity. What will we do with this opportunity? This is where our destiny is in our hands. We can decide to pursue those, 4 things: eating, sleeping, sex, and fighting. We can continue to make that the focus and the goal of our life, or we can actually pursue what the real potential of our existence is: spiritual cultivation. Now, we can help the living beings in the other species of life in their evolutionary journey. What we're doing tonight with Kirtan, chanting these sacred mantras, these names of the Supreme, they are purifying our heart and mind. Our consciousness has been purified of the accumulation of so many lifetimes of these things that we're talking about. So it is the transcendental nature of the holy names, of transcendental sound, which has the power to purify and helps us to grow spiritually. Similarly, so this has nothing to do with our belief. It isn't like because I believe in these mantras they will work. No, they work independent of our belief in them or non-belief in them. That is the result. So similarly, when a living entity in a lower species of life hears transcendental sound of these holy names, they become purified by the power, the potency of transcendental sound. And they will then come to the human form of life in their next life. This is the potency of transcendental sound. It can jump, like grades, so to speak, in school. So if we have a cat or a dog or whatever, plant, house plant, pot plant, the living being in there, if we chant to them or we play, CD or whatever of chanting, then that person in that body is becoming purified. And there are other things as well, such as, we won't go on too much longer, but, as some of you may be aware, in this process of bhakti yoga, there are different practices we engage in for spiritual cultivation. And one of them is we follow the instructions, the encouragement of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, if someone offers me with love and devotion, some fruit, flower, water, or a leaf, I will accept it. So in this process of sadhana bhakti, a person, a practitioner, before eating food, they offer this to the Supreme Soul, to Krishna, to God. And that food then becomes sanctified or purified, or what is known as Krishna Eyes. So it takes on a spiritual potency. In fact, it has the same spiritual potency as the holy names, as transcendental sound. So just as a quick side point here, Krishna only accepts vegetarian food, so we don't offer meat or eggs or anything like that. And then, so we can also offer food and then feed it to other human beings and other living beings in other bodies, and they also benefit spiritually, and we help them to progress. Is that okay? So yeah. So the first thing to understand is it is an automatic evolutionary step-by-step process, lifetime after lifetime. Every single living being will get the chance to come to the human form of life and the potential of that. But we can also help them accelerate it by these things which we just described. So that reminds us, that Madhila and I are working on putting together a whole course on Reincarnation Explained, where we actually go through in detail, in depth, clearly explaining the process and the steps, the science, and I use that word consciously, the science of reincarnation, what determines it, and how we can actually determine what our future destiny is, armed with this wisdom, with this knowledge and these practices. So if you think you might be interested, keep an eye open. So I think it's going to be like a 4 or a 5-part series, and with opportunity for questions and answers, and of course there'll be meditation, and it'll be a systematic step-by-step exploration and understanding of reincarnation. Thank you so much. Haribol.
We're going to chant a mantra now that is the Invocation, a beautiful work called the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a very ancient mantra. And I'm going to go through it with you, word by word. So if you want to repeat after me. Om.
Om.
Namo. Bhagavate. Bhagavate Very nice. You picked that one up really well. Just while we were chanting that, I was just remembering this beautiful description of this kirtan, this transcendental sound that we're singing. It's actually described as the greatest blessing or the greatest benediction for humanity, for all of us, because it actually destroys that fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. So that wheel of samsara that Radha Krishna was speaking about in his talk tonight, this beautiful kirtan, this congregational chanting of the names of the Lord, this is our ticket off the wheel, destroys that wheel.
It's not a very expensive ticket.
And it's a very nice ticket.
And the journey that the ticket will take you on is the most wonderful journey. Don't be reluctant. Don't hold back. This is our ticket out of here. Isn't there a saying like that? This is our ticket out of here. How easy and how nice. It's described as being sublime. This chanting of the holy names is the sublime method, which means extraordinarily, beautifully wonderful.
And cool.
And noise. It's noise as well. Nitai Go, Nitai Go, Hari Go, Hari Go, Nitai Go, Nitai Go, Hari Go.
Hari Bo, Nitai Go, Nitai Go, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Go, Nitai Go, Hari Bo.
Hari Bo, Nitai Go, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna
Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Sweat hogs.
One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, feeling oneself to be lower than the strong in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
So much. I thought it was, I don't know, it was a good night for me. Was it good for you? I hope so. I needed a bit of a tough week this week, so this was special. Thank you very much. Very helpful.
Thank you, everyone. We look forward to seeing you next week. We have Friday at Nobby's and we have Sunday here. And yeah, don't forget all our Yogasana and meditation classes are on during the week up at Nobby's, and we have programs all around the coast as well. So you can check out our timetable on asmy.org.au and navigate to Mermaid Beach there, and you'll see our full timetable. You can book online. All sorts of really cool stuff happening. So yeah, check it out.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night, everybody. Haribol.